It's that time again, you guys. It's time for the post-game show for One Piece, chapter 1160. So, just in case this is your first time here, how this works is that I like to go through the comment section of the latest spoiler video to see what everybody's talking about, because that's what really matters here, right? I am just one guy. I have my own thoughts, my own opinions. So, every now and then, I like to burst that bubble and see what the grander community thinks about the chapter. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Okay, so top comment is myself, because I do like to post the full summary here. I usually close it out. By the way, if you guys want your comment read, don't reply to this right here. Just respond normally, because sometimes, you know, when I get into the replies of certain comments, it's just people arguing or going on tangents. So yeah, just leave a regular comment. But I do look through them though every now and then. So heads up. First comment, top comment, 486 likes. Loki must be speaking at rap god level speed if he's telling this whole story in 3 minutes. Yeah, I don't know what the takeaway is going to be, by the way. When it comes to Loki telling Hiruden and Luffy this information, are they actually learning all of this? Because you gotta imagine, Hiruden said, hey, Loki, what happened to our father? And then Loki said, oh, what an awful day. Let me tell you about it in 3 minutes. Well, okay, Hiruden gave him the 3-minute stipulation, but Loki agreed to it. What are we doing here, you know? The minute he starts talking about Rocksteady Xebec, if I was Luffy or if I was Hiruden, I'd be like, yo, what the hell is this? Loki, what about our dad, man? And yeah, it kind of does matter to an extent, because if Hiruden and Luffy hear about this information, if they hear about God Valley, I do wonder what the takeaway is going to be. And, you know, needless to say, but I think Luffy would appreciate this flashback as a whole, because Luffy admires Roger. Luffy admires Shanks. And of course, he doesn't know much about his dad. So if Luffy hears about this whole flashback like we are, I think he would really enjoy it. But it does come back to this. Is Loki speaking at rap god level speed? Because I have no clue, brother. I saw this beautiful meme, and it pretty much encapsulates what this should be like in real time. The second comment says, Rox's weakness was that he didn't have a crew as loyal as Luffy's. No wings to help him see his dreams through. Yeah, I mean, I'd say he did have wings. Well, headcanon time. When we saw Whitebeard and Shiki at the very end of the chapter, like slicing and dicing up Marines, I think they were Rox's wings. But you're right, you know, they're not as loyal as Luffy's crew, and that's because he acquired them via Davy back fight. I feel like if he just acquired them normally, it would be okay. But because he started on such a sour note, it's like, yeah, like they're not going to be the most loyal. Like, I bet they like Rox. I bet they don't mind following him at this point. But are they a ride or die? I don't think so. And I always go back to what Kaido said back in Wano, when he was very drunk, but he was like, yeah, you know, pirates, they'll betray you when it matters the most. They'll always stab you in the back. I want to see where he got that from. I think we'll see that here at God Valley, and I wonder, minus Wang Ji, because he did cast the first stone, who will cast the second, third, fourth, and fifth? Like, it's gonna be so heartbreaking, man. Like, I didn't think I'd like Rocksteady Xebec this much, but I kind of care for him, dude, and it sucks because we know he's going to lose here on this island. But yeah, who is going to be the first person on the island that fails to have Rocksteady Xebec's back? I wouldn't be surprised if it's somebody like Big Mom, perhaps. Like, he's like, hey, Lin, come help me, my wife and my son. Or maybe he'll just say, hey, there's a slave over here, we should help, come on, guys. And then Big Mom's over here, you know, eating devil fruits, Kaido's eating devil fruits. And then Whitebeard's over here just, I don't know, fighting Roger or having some sake with them. And then Garp's over here saying, hey, slaves, get back in line, right? Like, it's gonna be tough. This is gonna be a heartbreaking little flashback. Also, what a crazy profile picture. What is this? Is that like a 3-eyed emu? Dude, that's terrifying. What the hell? I mean, I like it, but like, you know, like, I was about to go down to the next comment, and I'm like, wait, what is this? It's staring at me, man. I totally can buy the idea that the Celestial Dragons are so racist, they can't even tell races apart. Hence, the Buccaneer mistake. I agree. And you know, I do this all the time, or at least people do it to me all the time, right? Because I cover One Piece, which I don't mind, by the way. You know, I do not mind this whatsoever. But because I cover One Piece, some people are like, oh, a Japanese YouTuber, finally, he speaks English. And it's like, I'm not Japanese, guys, but I don't mind it, right? Like I said, I think it's all good and fun. It's not like anybody has ill intent when they say that, but I also don't correct people, so that's also my fault. That's also my fault. This says, let me give y'all a scenario. Dragon has no choice but put Baby Shanks in a treasure chest where his devil fruit is. While still having Baby Shamrock in his arms, he's cornered by or by multiple Knights of God and eats that fruit in desperation and immediately starts using it and is pretty damn good with it. Yeah, when it goes to wind powers in general, maybe this is a stereotype, but generally wind powers are wielded by pacifists or people who don't like to fight or people who don't like violence, right? Wind is the most neutral element out there compared to water, fire, and earth. So Dragon having some sort of wind devil fruit and mastering it from the get, Dragon is like a damn monk over here crying over dead people, which I mean is normal. I'm not trying to say that to demean him, but he is a pacifist through and through. That is his character. And yeah, I could see him mastering that fruit very easily. Kind of like how in Dressrosa, Sabo ate the Mare no Mi, and then immediately, he can, right? He fire-fisted the entire arena. And I wouldn't say it's because Sabo has a great affinity with fire, but because his brother utilized it, even though he didn't see his brother in real time, it just flowed naturally. So I think there is something about devil fruits flowing with your personality. So Dragon having a wind fruit and him being good with it just makes a lot of sense. As far as Shamrock goes, I think this is the main mystery. Like, what happens to Shamrock, brother? Some people are saying that Shamrock does escape the island and he is a revolutionary spy, but I feel like that's tough. When would Shamrock have gone back to the Holy Land? When he's a teenager? Maybe, but if that's the case, then I'd be so suspect of him, right? Like if I had a son and he was raised by a stranger for 10 or 12 years and he came back and he's like, hey, I love the Knights of God. I'd be like, huh, do you really though? Do you really like slavery as much as the next celestial dragon? Or are you simply a revolutionary spy? Like, I wouldn't trust that. I think Shamrock does get left behind here. Possibly because of this scenario, right? The Knights of God show up, and even though Dragon is good with his devil fruit, I don't think he can take on the Knights of God yet, right? Because you do need like some sort of advanced Conqueror's Hockey to actually wound these guys. Like, you could push them back, you can make them regenerate, but you can't defeat them unless you have great mastery over your hockey, which Dragon, I think he will debut some Conqueror's Hockey here, but he's not going to be a master of it yet. That would be kind of crazy if he was. This one says, I offer my energy to Oda like a spirit bomb for Goku. That's just so random. Yeah, I mean, Oda, believe it or not, man, that guy's 50 years old, which isn't old in the grand scheme of things, but it's so funny thinking about how Oda wanted to end the series very early on, or he thought that the series wouldn't go on for so long, and here he is, dude, pushing 50, still writing One Piece on a week-to-week basis. Like, I tell people this all the time. Yes, Oda is a billionaire, but I kind of feel bad for him, bro. Because every now and then, if you read his interviews, he talks about retirement. He's like, oh man, I want to see my family. I want to go on vacation. Like, he has all the money, but I would argue he just can't spend all of it, right? He's being handcuffed to his work, which I appreciate, right? I think most artists, okay, maybe not most artists, but some people would just take the bag and leave. I know I would. Dude, if I hit the lottery, you guys will never see me again. But Oda, great guy. I was wrong. Dragon not only questioned his orders, but he also took action by saving Kuma from a celestial dragon, divine status. It's also a great bit of character development, since Big Mom and Kaido had different interests than the rest of the crew, going after devil fruits instead. The first time I heard that the Rocks pirates were full of infighting and chaotic in nature, that is what I want to see. Yeah, and funny enough, we haven't really seen too much of it yet, right? Like, while yes, Big Mom and Kaido are going after fruits, they are still cooperating for the most part. I'd say the Rocks pirates haven't shown us true infighting yet. Of course, we had the scene where like Shiki dropped a bomb on Whitebeard and Kaido, but obviously they tanked it and it was business as usual. But here on this island, this is where it really matters, right? If they're gonna infight here, that will be a problem, especially with all the legends they're surrounded by. And I guess a great Straw Hat example of this would be back in Whiskey Peak, when Luffy and Zoro were fighting each other because of a misunderstanding, right? Luffy woke up, he saw a bunch of knocked out villagers, and he said, oh, Zoro, why'd you do that? And then they started fighting, and Zoro's trying to explain, and, we obviously had two opponents off to the side. It was Mr. Five and Miss Valentine's Day? Was it Miss Valentine's Day? The lemon girl? With the kilo to me, I think it was. Yeah, it was her. But it didn't matter because they were absolute weaklings, right? They still beat them despite the fact that Luffy and Zoro were still fighting each other. But now imagine if Luffy and Zoro were fighting during Onigashima, right? Kaido and Big Mom are right there, chilling and trying to kill you. Luffy and Zoro cannot afford to infight. That's kind of like this scenario here, and I feel like that could be really detrimental. I don't even know who would infight though, right? Because for the most part, while they all want Shaki for themselves, I think they all agree that they should save Shaki at the end of the day. So I'm not too sure. I think this kind of goes back to maybe Rocks and how he didn't tell his crew about his wife and child. Like, maybe a heartbreaking scene. But just imagine, Rocks gets to his wife and son, and he's trying to let them aboard the ship. He's trying to grant them safe passage, And then he's like, guys, come on, help me. We got to get these 2 slaves onto our ship. We got to get them off the island. And then he turns around and then everybody's gooning over Shacky. He's like, no, please. And then, of course, that's the downfall of the crew because Rox couldn't trust his crew with that sensitive family information. I keep thinking about the man with the eye patch Otis said will come in the final saga. With all the reveals, it feels as if it is Davy Jones. Davy Jones or Joy Boy. I think Joy Boy is another big option for that. But Davy Jones, I think, is up there as well. Maybe I'll hold a poll about that. You know, would you guys vote for Davy Jones being the eye patch man or Joy Boy? Personally, I'd give it to Joy Boy. Just because we know that he was like the first pirate, as said by Vegapunk, and an eye patch, man, that's like one of the most piratey things you could have. An eye patch, a peg leg, the captain hat, and a parrot. Those are like the 4, a hook arm. That's also it. Yep, the 5 things that make a stereotypical pirate. Hook arm, eye patch, parrot, peg leg, captain hat. I think Joy Boy will have at least 3 out of 5 of those things. And then maybe Davy Jones will have the other 2. This comment says, this chapter really makes Xebec and Garling foils to one another. Xebec is a thuggish looking and admittedly thuggish character who nonetheless has some honor and actual love for his wife and child, enough to fake his name and hide them for their sake. Regardless of the soul living on and teach theories, he's someone that isn't as horrible as his reputation. Garling is a handsome man, beloved by his peers, but is so monstrous and shallow that he makes a woman fall for him, give kids to him, and then discards her like nothing when another prize is around. Likely to discard that prize as well when another woman arrives. One understands love while the other only knows love to exploit it. Yep, that is true, and I will admit, this is why I like both characters a lot. You know, Garling, he is the beautiful monster. Xebec is the kind ogre. Is that a good way to describe him? That sounds like an insult, right? Kind ogre. He's like Shrek. He's got a lot of layers, man. Got a lot of layers. Whereas Garling, he reminds me of Griffith. And hey, you know, Griffith, bad guy, great villain. Love that dude. As a villain. I feel like I always have to throw that in there because if you say you like Griffith, they're like, but sigh, he. And it's like, okay, I know that, but that's what makes him so devilish, man. You know, that makes a peak villain. Well, not that specifically, but, you know, it makes you want to root for Guts. Like, Guts, one day he's gonna take him down. And I think that's the appeal of a lot of these God Knights, right? It's because they're so evil that you kind of look forward to their fights. Oda is cooking up some dastardly villains in this final saga. And I'm glad for it, by the way. Because beforehand, before we got the Knights of God reveal, we really just had the Gorosei to look forward to, and even then we didn't know if the Gorosei were actual fighters or not until Egghead Island. And it's like, okay, Luffy and the gang, they go up to the Holy Land, and we fight 300 St. Charloses, you know what I mean? So the Knights of God, I think, is a much needed, well-welcomed faction, and yeah, I love these boys, man. All right, this comment says, Redon even said he was laughing at us having all these discussions on Buccaneers and Davy Clansmen, knowing it was all false. Yeah, I heard about this. And, you know, to be fair, Redon isn't the one who dropped the initial spoilers, which if you guys don't know what this is in reference to, when the brief spoilers came out, it said that the Davy clan is filled with Buccaneers. But of course, later on, I think just like 3 or 4 hours later, they did come out with a clarification saying that nobody special said it, and it could have just been a off-note remark, which is what I think it actually was. And, you know, that's one thing to keep in mind with these spoilers, right? These guys, they get the chapter well in advance, and they have to quickly translate from Japanese to whatever language they're in. And they're not in English half the time, by the way. Right? We have Arabic, we have Spanish, French, Russian, and it's like, yeah, like it's tough translating from one language to another, and then to another language. So sometimes mistakes like this do happen, and that's part of the spoiler game, man. We're all here for it. This says, it is so tragic that Rox needs reliable friends and crewmates at this moment, but it's the one thing he can't get despite all his strength and knowledge of the truth of the world. It's his fault, though. You know, I don't want to victim blame, but it's kind of his fault, dude. Like, if he really just tried to recruit people normally, like Luffy or even Whitebeard or just any other pirate out there, even like Blackbeard, right? Blackbeard broke people out of Impel Down. They felt grateful to him, and he also inspired them with his own ambition. It's like, yeah, like those, while they're not ride or dies all the time, they do want to follow you for the most part. Rox is over here getting people via Davy fights, man. That is such a sour note to join a crew on. Like, he should have done it a little bit better. It's one of those things where his trajectory is so great, but his start was just not ideal. He had a bad foundation, I guess is a good way to say it. But you could argue that that's the only foundation he knows of, right? Because he is from the Davy clan. So possibly within his group, they were like, hey, you know, our ancestor, he loved Davy back fights. This is how he got his crew. You should do the same thing. And then, of course, that's why he did Davy back fights. You know, I wish we got more Rock's backstory. Like, how does he know about the knowledge of the world? How did he get his strength? What is his fighting style even? Like, yes, we got the explanation that Rock's, he slams his sword so hard that it creates a giant shockwave. And it's like, okay, I want to see more of that, dude. Like, who taught him this thing, man? Was it just like from birth? Is it a special graded blade? I want to know. Sai sees a Buccaneer, and his immediate relative then assumes all other Buccaneers look the same. I think there's a word for that. Okay, wait a minute. We've only had 2 confirmed Buccaneers in the entire series, and they have the same body shape. You know, if we get a 3rd Buccaneer, yeah, I'm gonna refer to the first 2 body shapes we got, man. That's just how it is, you know? These guys are Dorito shaped. Like, I can't explain it any other way. They're shaped like a quesadilla slice. Kuma, Clap, they're very on the nose with their bodies, right? So when I look at characters like Whitebeard or Blackbeard or any other character that people think are Buccaneers, I'm like, okay, they could be because they're big, but their body shape doesn't fit the bill. It doesn't fit the bill. And then, of course, Bonnie. She used Distorted Future at the beginning of Egghead, and we're assuming she turned herself into a Buccaneer because guess what? She had that crazy, ugly body shape, just like Kuma and Clap. So it's like, yeah, dude, I think all Buccaneers will have that absurd body, and I think that's a fair point to make, right? This says, I get to see how big Sai did it. Yeah, I might have said that. Whitebeard, secretly gooning is the best in my opinion. Yeah, I love it. You know, some people, they like to believe that Whitebeard is a purist. You know, Whitebeard doesn't goon. But you gotta remember, man, at the end of the day, Whitebeard is just another guy, right? He's one of us. One of us! Holy Night Lady with the cigar is gonna be a relative of Smoker. Calling it now. Holy Night Lady with the cigar is gonna be a relative of Smoker. Because she smokes? Huh. I mean, funny enough, we don't know Smoker's name. Is Smoker even like his real name? No, it is. It is. It is. We have a guy named Dragon. We have a clan named Monkey. Yeah, Smoker's his real name. Huh. I wonder when we'll learn about his full name. Will it matter? Will it matter? You know, there's a lot of Marines whom we don't know their full names, right? Like Sengoku, we don't know the full name. Most of the admirals, we don't know their full name. We just have like their epithets or their nicknames and then like, I think their first name and that's it. I wonder if there's any D's in the Marines. Not saying that Smoker's a D clan member, but I do wonder. And then there's Kobe too, right? Kobe was a orphan. God, I feel like we're gonna get so many D's in the final saga. Like, hey, by the way, this guy over here, he was a D. That one guy over there, yeah, he was a D. You know, Oda's just rubbing his hands like, yep, I didn't tell you their full names for a reason. This says, the Buccaneer resemblance isn't just the large body, but if you look at Kuma, Blackbeard, and Whitebeard, they all have distinct jaws-chins. That is true. They all have distinct jaws and chins, but I just think that's like an archetype. I don't know. Like, we need more, right? Like, we don't even know what Buccaneers are. We heard that they were hybrids. They mentioned that Buccaneers are hybrid races, but we don't know what creates those hybrids. Like, people were saying, oh, it's a giant and a human, which makes sense. A giant and a human making a Buccaneer makes sense, size-wise. But then we have Colin, who is a hybrid, and he's aging like a giant. He looks like a giant. He's already bigger than a Buccaneer. And it's like, yeah, we just really do not have enough information yet. Our sample pool, like I said earlier, it's so small. Like, we just have Clap and Kuba. We need more information. Imagine the reason Dragon has the highest bounty isn't because of the revolutionary and all. Parentheses, that group seems pretty useless to be honest. A kindred spirit, my man, my brother. Yeah, I wish the Revs were a lot cooler. I wish they were cooler, I wish they were stronger, but I know that goes against what they're all about, right? Yeah, I'm not the biggest Rev fan, man, but you know, hey, the mission, it's gonna be successful. You know, when I say I don't like the Revs, people are like, you know, they're gonna win one day, sign. It's like, of course. We're talking about the MC's dad, right? This is the overarching plot of the series. Of course, it's gonna be successful, but man, I do not like these guys. They go on. They say, but it's because he went against Garling by saving the twins and even shot one of the gods. That is true. I don't know if anybody knew that he shot the Celestial Dragon, though, because he shot him in the back, right? The Celestial Dragon was focused on Kuma and Ivankov, so this might not play a real role, but the Garling thing, yes. I could see Garling saying, hey, that dragon kid, he's now revolutionary, plus he also stole Shanks at a young age. We gotta slap him with the high bounty. I also wouldn't be shocked if Garling wanted to foot that bill. They're like, oh, but Garland, who's gonna pay for this absurd bounty? And he's like, I will. I'll put the for Garland money to back it all up. As far as why people believe that Dragon has the highest bounty, I think this comes from an old mistranslation where Manga Panda, if you guys know that site from back in the day, they translated Dragon's epithet to the world's most wanted man, but that's not actually correct. He's the world's most dangerous man and or the world's most heinous criminal, but that right there doesn't necessitate him having the highest bounty in the series. He could have it, but what I'm just saying is it's not confirmed yet. This says, bro, just casually, has a stuffed emu in the background. That's sick. I want one. Yeah, I bought it for the memes. There he is. I just saw the memes of him sitting at McDonald's and people tucking emu into bed, and I just thought that was super goofy. I personally got mine off of eBay. I don't know if you could still get it from eBay, but that was the best way I could like avoid the shipping prices. So if you find one on there for like 50, 60 bucks, not bad. Obviously, make sure to check who you're buying it from. Make sure you're getting it from a good seller that has like, 4 or 5 stars. I don't want you guys to get scammed out there. eBay, I don't know. Maybe it's an older thing, but I remember eBay back in the day, you used to get scammed on there all the time. You're buying one thing and then you get another thing. It just really sucked. Or you buy something that's new and then it's used. Yeah, be careful with eBay. Maybe that's like an older take, but it was decent. It was decent. Letting the Holy Knights participate is kind of unfair. Imagine being a regular Celestial hunting with a gun. Meanwhile, other guys are hunting by turning into supernatural monsters. Yeah, it's a little bit unfair, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't think your St. Charloses are expecting to win, right? Put St. Charles on that island. I don't think in his mind he thinks he could beat Garling or Gunko or St. Sombers or anybody of that caliber. I think they're just doing it for fun. Look at the smile on the Celestial Dragon's face while they're shooting these people down. I don't think they care about getting first place, man. I think they just want to have a little bit of fun. And also, because the competition here is split into 2 categories, family, teams, and individuals, I think they do help, right? Like imagine Gunko. She kills 1,000 people. The Garling kills 2,000 people. But Gunko has a lot of Man Myers behind her, a lot of Man Meyer randoms and nobodies. And they're over here killing, I don't know, like 2 or 3 people each. That adds up, right? That helps the family competition. So even though you don't win the individual competition, you could still help your family by participating in killing 1 or 2 losers. God Valley citizens, innocent citizens. I feel this may have pushed the theory that not only was Joy Boy a Buccaneer, but he was also a Davy. We know Joy Boy was cited to be the first pirate, just like the origin of the Buccaneers. With this chapter suggesting that the Davies may be Buccaneers, I feel like this is where Oda's going. Following with this, maybe the Will of D is a reference to the will of Davy, and each of his crew members adopted the name. This would explain why there are multiple D families. Yeah, as far as the D families go, I feel like when we get the explanation, it will be something similar to what happened to Sabo, where Sabo was curious about it, and Luffy and Ace being, his brother, in a way, they're like, hey, Sabo, you want one? We'll give you one. They simply gave him the D initial. I think that's how the D was passed around. As far as the D goes, I'm still like really divided on this. I love the theory, by the way. I love the theory. I just don't necessarily agree yet. I can see that Oda could be going this way, but I just feel like Joy Boy wasn't a Buccaneer. And then even going back to the Davy thing, right? The Davy clan, they live at God Valley. If this is their original homeland, then I definitely don't think it's Joy Boy, because Joy Boy lived in the Ancient Kingdom. So unless like the Davy clan lived there and then they migrated to God Valley, I don't know. Well, we could say God Valley is like Jaya. Yeah, that could be it. God Valley could be like Jaya, where it's an island that was split in 2. It was separated. Maybe this is part of the Ancient Kingdom. But yeah, I don't know yet. Good theory though, good theory. I have seen a lot of people talking about Joy Boy being a Buccaneer. And whenever I look at the Vegapunk Egghead Island flashback, going back to what I said earlier, the body shape just doesn't fit in my opinion. Joy Boy seemed like a regular human, at least shape-wise. So that's why I don't believe the Buccaneer thing yet, which, like I always say, I could be totally wrong when it comes to this. And, I'll apologize when it happens, but yeah, I don't fully believe it yet. But I do appreciate the theory though. This says, by the way things are going, I don't think Garp and Roger killed Rocks. It's either Emu or Garling who killed Rocks. I think so too. I could see Garp and Roger fighting Rocks, but as far as who lands the final blow, I think it could be one of these 2, right? Either Emu or Garling. I wouldn't be surprised if they even sneak shot Rocks. Like maybe Rocks is trying to plead for his family, or maybe he's trying to talk sense into Garp or Roger, or maybe he lets his guard down, and then boom, here comes Emu and Garling hitting him with the Kaido sneak attack. Okay, sorry, wait, no. Kaido didn't sneak attack Odin. It was Higurashi who surprised Odin, and then Kaido accidentally killed him, or knocked him out. Was there ever a surprise attack in One Piece? I feel like I'm missing a obvious surprise attack moment. My memory's kind of hazy right now, so we'll come back to that one. This is a stretch, but let's say the girl is Olvia. Okay, so you're talking about Blackbeard's mom. All right. That could mean that Robin is Blackbeard's sister. I've been saying for a while that Robin does look a lot like Blackbeard's sisters that Oda drew a while ago, that everyone assumes Oda changed course on. And maybe Robin's ability to turn into a demon isn't her devil fruit awakening, because it wasn't specified it was her awakening. And why would that be her awakening if she has the flower fruit? She is called the demon child, and we now see that there are a lot of things that resemble demons. What if Rox's ability is the same, to turn into a demon? We still haven't seen all of Rox's tricks, which would mean also Blackbeard can, and that might be how he injured Shanks before he even had a devil fruit or hockey. Yeah, I don't fully agree with the Robin route. I feel like this could just be a coincidence that they look alike. I held the poll on this. I think 25% believe that there is a connection. 75% do not believe there's a connection. I am among the 75. Could be wrong. Like I say, I could always be wrong on that. But as far as Robin's awakening, it was never stated to be her awakening. I think it could just be like a basic power of her flower no mi, because her flower no mi allows her to spawn body doubles of herself. And the way I see that giant demon, it's just a giant clone that she kind of altered the appearance of. But I do like this route where, you know, it could be related to her lineage. You know, maybe she can turn into a demon because she is a demon child. I think the same could be said for Loki even, right? Loki has his very special eyes, and maybe Loki can turn into a giant demon or a monster, and that's because he is the special ancient giant among the group. As far as Blackbeard goes, that's a tough one. I don't mind Blackbeard scarring Shanks because of a Davy clan secret, but then again, we don't know if he has a devil fruit already by the time he fights Shanks, right? Is that he already has a third devil fruit, which I'm pretty iffy on. You know, I don't really have any real stances when it comes to Blackbeard and that third devil fruit. But yeah, I like this. I do think that the Davy clan does have something in their books. For 900 years, right? Davy Jones, I bet he passed something down. I bet there's some power that's just floating out there that is waiting to be unleashed. All right, so now for the last comment, they said, someone said on TikTok that Shamrock was raised by Dragon. Then Dragon told Shamrock to join the God Knights as undercover for the revolutionaries. Any thoughts, Sai? Yeah, so we kind of talked about this earlier. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I just feel like it wouldn't work. Because if I was Garling, right, and my son came back way later, I'd be like, yo, where the hell were you? Who raised you, man? And then plus, right, Shamrock, he does seem like a villain, right? The whole thing about, hey, let's play a game here on Elbaf where we use the kids and we just put them in a line. Like, that was his idea. Like, that seems a little bit dastardly for somebody who's working for Dragon, even as an undercover agent. And I just put the onus on Garling to be able to sniff that out ASAP. And then even then, right, like, just because you were taught to be a revolutionary at such a young age doesn't mean that you're going to end up as a revolutionary. Like, there is a good chance that if this happened to Shamrock, maybe he goes to the Holy Land and he's like, wait a minute, I kind of like the Celestial Dragon lifestyle, right? Because that happens all the time where, you know, your parents are one way and then you end up as the exact opposite, right? So if Dragon raised him as a pacifist and as a good guy, it's not exactly guaranteed that Shamrock would turn out the way Dragon wants him to. But overall, though, I don't think this would happen. I think it makes more sense if Shanks gets away and Shamrock doesn't. Because people like kind of compare it to like nature versus nurture in a way, right? Well, not even that, but just like how different parents can change you vastly. Because we have Shanks who was raised by Roger and he turned out to be very benevolent, at least from what we've seen, right? Shanks is a very good guy. And then we have Shamrock, who's raised by Garling, and he seems to be a complete piece of shit, right? I like that dynamic. So if we have Shamrock also being a good guy, I don't know. I feel like this would also be the loss of a great villain. You know, Shamrock being like the evil Shanks out there, I think it's just perfect. So I hope we don't lose him like this. But overall, like I said, it's not a bad theory. I think we just have to explain it a little bit more. And we'd have to learn more about Shamrock as a whole. Because he does seem like a villain right now. Even though we haven't seen him, you know, slave anybody firsthand, you know, he did come up with these games, right? He wanted the Celestial Dragons to play with these Elbaf kids. With that being said, though, guys, thank you so much for joining me in this video. I really freaking appreciate it. Thank you for the comments as well, right? Without the comments, we would not even be here today. Also, pinned comment for this video will be a prediction list. So that one I do want you guys to reply to. Drop your predictions for the next chapter. I'll go over them next video. And that's pretty much it. If you have time on the side, I do have a gaming channel over at Syvduck. I also stream every other night over on Syvduck at Twitch as well. And I also have an anime reaction channel here on YouTube called Somnus Reacts, where I react to One Piece episodes and whatever else is coming out that is popular that catches my interest. That was a mouthful. You know, after I'm done making these videos, like my throat gets like really dry. I'm like, man, I gotta drink some water. I'm really bad at drinking water. I heard that, you know, a long time ago, you're supposed to drink 6 or 8 cups of water a day. And then I saw like a scientific report. They're like, yeah, well, not super scientific. They're like, yeah, if you just drink when you're thirsty, you're kind of fine. And it's like, that's what I've been doing. But man, I feel like I need more water. Yeah, how about this? If you guys are out there watching this video, go drink some water right now. It's good for you, man. You know, water can never be bad, right? Unless you're a devil fruit user, then that's a little bit different. Devil fruit users. Would you eat one? Yeah, I think everybody would eat one. Yeah. It would suck if you don't know what you're gonna get. It's like pulling a loot box, right? But then again, I do think that any power is better than no power. Like if I was stuck with a stupid Spring no Me, I'd take it over nothing. Yeah, I'd take it over nothing. What's the worst devil fruit? Caulifla's soap fruit? Maybe. Like I was about to say Alvida and her slip no Me, or smooth no Me. But even then it has its uses. You could slip through anything. But Caulifla just turning into soap. I guess you'd save a lot of money yearly. You'd smell pretty good, actually. Yeah, and you'd smell pretty good. And she used it to fight pretty well too. She beat Sanji with it. Which Sanji wasn't fighting back, but I mean, that ability looked dastardly. And then she lost a Nami. It's like, ah, damn. To lightning? To a single lightning bolt? Caulifla, come on. Sorry, I just got done rewatching Enies Lobby. I'm currently on Thriller Bark. Good stuff, good stuff. But anyways, getting sidetracked now. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out and stay safe, brother.